My name is Dominic Dalton. I'm 47 now, but this story started when I was 29, breaking my back in construction right here in Charleston, South Carolina. Back then, I had it all mapped out. A solid foreman gig with Apex Construction Group, a decent house in a neighborhood I could afford, and a family. My wife, Adriana Doyle Dalton, and our 3 kids, Mason, who was 5, Sienna, just 3, and little Alara, only 18 months old. I wasn't a man who said much. I believed you showed love by doing, not talking. That meant 50-hour weeks on the job site, concrete dust in my lungs, and hands so rough they'd snag on a cotton sheet. I made sure the lights stayed on, the fridge was full, and the kids had shoes that fit. My foreman's pay wasn't executive money, but it was steady. Adriana worked part-time at a dental office, which helped. We weren't rich, but we were solid. We managed the mortgage, the car payments, and the daycare bills. Life was about foundations, and I was building them at work and at home. Or so I thought. I was living in a house of cards, and I was the only one who couldn't see the wobble. Just 3 days before my world imploded, Adriana had been all smiles. She'd kissed my cheek on my way out the door, my lunchbox in one hand and my hard hat in the other. "Have a great day, Dominic," she'd said, and I believed her. It was a Tuesday in March 2007. I remember the date because our tax refund had just landed in the joint account. $3,500 we'd earmarked for a real family vacation that summer. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. I pulled my truck into the driveway at 6:30 p.m. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky orange. I was tired, my boots caked in mud, but I was ready for the chaos. Ready for Mason to show me his new drawing, for Sienna to demand I pick her up, for Alara to toddle over with her arms in the air. I opened the front door and was hit by silence. Not just quiet. This was a dead, hollow silence. The house felt wrong. Too clean. Too still. "Adriana?" I called out, dropping my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door. No answer. "Kids? I'm home." The TV was off. No toys were scattered in the living room. I walked into the kitchen. No pots on the stove. No smell of dinner. A cold knot started to form in my gut. "Adriana!" I yelled this time, louder. I took the stairs 2 at a time. I checked Mason's room. His bed was made. 2 made. Sienna's room was the same. I walked to the master bedroom. The air was stale. Adriana's car keys were gone from the dresser. Her 2004 sedan wasn't in the driveway. But that wasn't unusual. She ran errands. But this felt different. I walked to our closet. My side was the same mess of work jeans and t-shirts. Her side was empty. Not completely empty, but half gone. All her favorite dresses, her good shoes. Her suitcases were gone from the top shelf. I turned and looked at her jewelry box on the dresser. It was open. The necklace my mother had given her was gone. The earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary were gone. My heart wasn't just pounding. It was hammering, trying to escape my chest. This wasn't an errand. This was planned. I yanked my phone from my belt clip and pulled up our joint bank account app. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type the password. Available balance, $84.15. I scrolled down. Withdrawal, ATM, 10:30 a.m., $3,500 Noxalos. The tax refund. She'd taken all of it, every cent we had. She'd left me with just enough to avoid an overdraft fee. I stumbled back downstairs, my mind a blank roar of white noise. I felt dizzy, like I'd been hit in the head with a 2x4. And then I saw it. On the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker was a single piece of notebook paper, folded neatly. My name wasn't even on it. I unfolded it. Her neat, perfect handwriting. 10 words. I deserve to be happy. Don't look for me. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, take care of the kids. No, this isn't working. Just 10 words that took a sledgehammer to the foundation of my entire life. I read the note again and again. I waited for it to make sense. It never did. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a cooling off period. This was an execution. She had packed, stolen our money, and left. She had left her children. The silence was broken by a sudden sharp realization that made me gasp for air. Alara. I looked at the clock. 6:45 p.m., Sunrise Daycare closed at 7 c. They charged $5 a minute for late pickups. I didn't have $5. I grabbed my keys, sprinted to the truck, and peeled out of the driveway. The note still clutched in my fist. I drove like a madman, my mind cycling through a single terrifying thought. She left Alara. She left her baby at daycare. I skidded into the parking lot at 6:58 p.m. I ran to the door and buzzed. Ms. Pat, the owner, opened it, her face a mix of relief and annoyance. "Mr. Dalton, you're cutting it close." "I'm sorry, Pat, I got held up." Alara was the last one there, sitting on a colorful mat playing with wooden blocks. When she saw me, her face lit up, and she held up her arms. "Dada!" I scooped her up and held her so tight she grunted. She wrapped her chubby arms around my neck. As I signed her out, she looked around the empty room. "Mama?" she asked, with that hopeful, questioning tone. "Mama?" I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, my throat closing up. I paid Ms. Pat the day's fee with the last of the cash in my wallet and carried my daughter to the truck, the full weight of what had happened finally settling on me. I was alone. I sat in the daycare parking lot for 10 minutes, Alara babbling in her car seat, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I didn't know what to do. Mason and Sienna. Where were they? My first thought was that she'd taken them, but the note, the empty closet, it didn't add up. I called my mother, Catherine Dalton. She lived 20 minutes away in Hanahan, a tough-as-nails woman who'd raised me and my brothers mostly on her own. She picked up on the second ring. "Dominic, what's wrong?" She just knew. Mothers always know. "Mom?" I choked out. "Adriana's gone." "What do you mean gone? Like to the store?" "No, Mom. She's gone." She packed her bags, emptied the bank account, and left a note. She left Alara at daycare. Mom, I don't know where Mason and Sienna are." There was a heavy silence on the line. "No, I told you so." "No, what did you do?" Just a long, steady breath. "The older kids are here," she said, her voice steel. "She dropped them off this morning. Said she had a doctor's appointment and would be late. That lying little—" She cut herself off. "I'll put on a pot of coffee," Catherine said. "Bring the children here. Bring them here tonight. We'll figure this out." I hung up, the relief so strong my knees went weak. An anchor. I had an anchor. I drove to my mother's house. Mason and Sienna ran out to the truck, happy to see me, oblivious. "Mommy left us here all day," Mason announced, like it was a fun adventure. "We had pizza," Sienna added. I herded them inside, and my mother just looked at me, her eyes saying everything. She hugged me hard, then took Alara from my arms. "Go sit," she ordered. The next few hours were a blur of logistics. Getting the kids' pajamas, explaining to Mason and Sienna that they were having a sleepover at Grandma's. I told them Mommy had to go on a trip for work. It tasted like ash in my mouth. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, my phone buzzed. It was Laura, Adriana's sister. I braced myself. "Dominic, what did you do to her?" she snapped. "No, Adriana just called me. She's hysterical. Said you drove her away." What? I drove her away? I just got home from work, Laura. She's gone. She took all our money." "She said you were cold," Laura accused. "That you never talked to her. That you just cared about your job. She said she couldn't live like that." "So she left her kids?" I shot back, my voice rising. "She left her baby at daycare and stole our tax refund?" "Who was she with, Laura?" "What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me. She didn't do this alone." "Who is he?" Laura was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet, shaky. "Oh God, she really did it. It's Connor Harding, from her office." The name hit me. A guy she'd mentioned. The funny one. "They've been seeing each other for months," Laura admitted, the guilt pouring through the phone. "She told me it was just a fling, that she was going to end it." "Oh God, Dominic. They quit their jobs. On the same day. Today. They're gone." I hung up the phone. It wasn't just a breakdown. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a plan, an affair. A betrayal so deep it left no room for air. The next few days were a logistical nightmare. I had to call out of work, something I never did. My supervisor at Apex, a good man named Marcus, was understanding, but he had a crew to run. "Take the week, Dom," he said. "But you know the job. We need you." I knew. Construction doesn't wait. The most immediate problem was money. And childcare. With Adriana gone, Ilara's daycare jumped from part-time to full-time. An extra $100 a month I did not have. I had to switch to the 6 a.m. shift. It meant waking the kids at 4:30 a.m., dressing them while they were half asleep, and dropping them at my mother's before driving across town to the job site. The shift paid less, no overtime, but it got me home by 4 p.m., just in time to pick them up, make dinner, and collapse. My mother was a saint, but she was in her 60s and still worked part-time. This wasn't her retirement plan. "We'll manage, Dominic," she told me, handing me a plate of reheated casserole. "We're Daltons. We don't break." But I was breaking. The bills piled up. I canceled our cable, switched to a flip phone, started buying an off-brand cereal that Mason said tasted like sad cardboard. "Why don't we have the good cereal anymore?" he asked one morning. "We're trying new things, buddy," I lied. "It's an adventure." He bought it, because at 5 years old, you want to believe your dad has a plan. 3 months in, I was drowning. I was surviving on 4 hours of sleep, caffeine, and pure spite. I was terrified Adriana would show up with her lawyer boyfriend and try to take the kids, claiming I was an unstable single father. I needed leverage. I needed proof. I sold my grandfather's old watch, the only valuable thing I owned, for $900. I took $750 of it and walked into the office of Julian Mercado, a private investigator with a dusty office downtown. "She left," I told him, laying out the facts. "Emptied the bank account, abandoned the kids, ran off with her boyfriend. I don't want her back. I want full, ironclad, uncontested custody. I need proof of abandonment." Mercado nodded, taking notes. "Name's Connor Harding, last seen in Charleston. You got a photo of her?" I handed him one. "They're in the wind. Her sister thinks they went somewhere." "They always leave a trail," Mercado said, steepling his fingers. Bank transactions, new driver's license, apartment application. They're amateurs. They'll be sloppy. Give me 2 weeks. 10 days later, Mercado called me. I was on my lunch break, sitting on the tailgate of my truck. "Mr. Dalton, I've got them," he said, his voice dripping with professional pride. 100% confirmed. They're in Atlanta, Georgia. Adriana's using her maiden name, Doyle. My heart hammered. Atlanta? You're sure? She opened a new bank account. He co-signed an apartment lease, a place called the Perimeter Lofts, apartment 4B. They're there, Mr. Dalton. They got sloppy, just like I said. He gave me the address. You want me to arrange a process server in Fulton County. It'll run you another $500. No, I said, my mind racing. No, I've got it. Just email me the address, all the details. I didn't have another $500. I barely had $5. But I had the custody papers my cheap lawyer had drawn up, sitting in a manila envelope on my passenger seat. If I served them myself, it was free. I told my boss I had a family emergency. I told my mother the same thing. I left the kids with her, took my entire emergency fund, $400 I'd scraped together from selling my old tools, and got in my truck. It was a 4-hour drive to Atlanta. 4 hours of my knuckles white on the steering wheel, the note, "I deserve to be happy," flashing in my mind. I was furious. I was exhausted. And I was desperate. This had to end. I needed the papers signed. I needed this to be over so I could move on with my kids. I stopped for gas and a coffee that tasted like burnt plastic. I called my mom. "Dominic, where are you? You sound like you're on the highway." "I'm in Georgia, Mom. I'm going to find her. I'm going to end this." "Dominic, that's not smart," she warned. "What if he's there? What if there's trouble?" "I don't care about him," I growled. "I just need her to sign these papers. I'll be back tonight. Kiss the kids for me." I hung up before she could argue. I found the Perimeter Lofts at 8 p.m. It was a new, sterile building that smelled like fresh paint and pine sol. I found apartment 4B. My heart was a drum. I had the envelope in my hand. I raised my fist and knocked, hard. "Adriana! I know you're in there. It's Dominic." I heard movement. The peephole went dark. The lock turned. The door opened, and a man I'd never seen before stood there. He was in his 50s, with a confused look on his face. "Can I help you?" Behind him, a woman peeked out. "Honey, who is it?" They weren't Adriana and Connor. Not even close. I'm looking for Adriana Doyle," I stammered. "Or Connor Harding." "Never heard of 'em," the man said. "We've lived here for 6 months. You got the wrong apartment, pal." "But 4B." I looked at the number on the door. It was 4B. "Sorry. Good luck." He closed the door. I stood in the hallway, the manila envelope feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was wrong. The lead was bad. Mercado was wrong. I sank down against the wall, my head in my hands. I was broke. I was 4 hours from my kids, and I was right back at square one. All that money, all that time. Wasted. I drove back to Charleston that night, pulling over twice to sleep for an hour at rest stops because I was so tired I was seeing things. I got home at 3 a.m., smelling like defeat. The next day, I called Mercado's office. His secretary said he was in the field. I left a message that would have stripped paint. I was at my mother's house picking up the kids. I was broken. I'd failed. I was sitting on her porch while the kids played in the yard, trying to figure out my next move. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You looked in the wrong place. They're in Eugene, Oregon." L. My blood ran cold. Eugene, Oregon, clear across the country, and L. Laura, Adriana's sister. I typed back, my thumbs fumbling. Why are you telling me this? Is this another bad lead? The reply was instant. No, it's real. She called me last night, crying. He's working at a dental supply company. She's waitressing. They're broke. Why are you helping me, Laura? He's no good, Dominic. And Adriana, she's my sister, but she's a fool. Those kids are blood. They don't deserve this. I gave you the tip. Don't ever contact me again. A text wasn't good enough. I drove to Laura's house. She opened the door, and her face went pale. Dominic, I told you not to contact me. I'm not leaving until you tell me to my face, I said, planting my feet on her doormat. Why are you doing this? After you blamed me? After you covered for her? She crossed her arms, a mirror image of her sister's stubbornness. I didn't cover for her. I didn't know the whole plan. I thought she was just unhappy. I didn't know she'd leave her children. She spat the words. I talked to her last night. She was crying because they're behind on rent and Connor wants to buy a new car. Not one word about Mason. Not one question about Sienna or the baby. She's my sister, Laura said, her eyes filling with angry tears. But she's dead to me. And those kids, they deserve a father. They have one. You. So take the tip. Get your custody and get off my porch. She wasn't my ally. She wasn't my friend. She was just a woman with a conscience, and that was all I needed. I called Mercado. I'd lost my $750, but I was willing to pay him another $100 to verify the Oregon lead. Mr. Dalton, he said, all business, no apology for the Atlanta disaster. I'm looking at it now. Yes, Eugene, Oregon. A rental application for a Connor Harding and Adriana Doyle. It just cleared. Looks like your new source was solid. They're struggling, I said, repeating Laura's words. Looks like it, Mercado confirmed. He's at a dental supply warehouse. She's at a place called the Chili Shack. Their combined income won't last long in that studio apartment. The rent is high out there. They didn't plan this very well at all. Amateurs. Sloppy. He was right about that at least. This time I didn't drive. I used the last of my sold watch money to hire a process server in Eugene. It cost $300 and it was the best money I'd ever spent. The server found her during her shift at the Chili Shack. He handed her the divorce and custody papers right at the hostess stand. We had a court date in Berkeley County Family Court. Adriana never responded. She never called. She never hired a lawyer. She never showed up. The judge stamped the papers. Full and sole custody granted to the father, Mr. Dominic Dalton, due to respondent's abandonment. I walked out of the courthouse, the papers clutched in my hand. It wasn't a celebration, but it was a victory. She was legally gone. She couldn't touch us. That first Christmas was brutal. I'd been working side jobs, landscaping on Saturdays, just to make ends meet. My entire Christmas budget was $200. I wrapped a baseball glove for Mason, coloring books and a huge box of crayons for Sienna, a stuffed elephant for Alara. I felt like a failure. On Christmas morning, they tore through the presents. Sienna held up her crayons, her eyes wide. The box with the sharpener! The good one! Mason was already punching his fist into the new glove. Alara was hugging her elephant. This is the best Christmas ever, Daddy, Sienna announced, throwing her arms around my neck. I almost broke down right there. It wasn't the best Christmas. It was the poorest. But she believed it. They were happy. They were loved. And they were mine. That's when I realized what my revenge would be. It wouldn't be loud. I wouldn't drag her name through the mud. My revenge would be silent. I would raise these 3 kids to be smart, strong, and happy. I would build a life for them so full of love that they would never, ever miss the woman who walked out. Her greatest punishment wouldn't be poverty or loneliness. It would be her own complete and total irrelevance. By 2010, we weren't just surviving. We were solid. I'd busted my hump at Apex and earned a promotion to crew supervisor. The raise was significant. We were finally comfortable. The kids were thriving. Mason, now 8, was the star of his Little League team and actually liked his math homework. Sienna, 6, had her artwork all over our refrigerator. She had a real talent, her drawings full of color and life. And Alara, 4, was a chatterbox, the boss of her preschool class, and sharp as a tack. We were a team, a tight 3-kid, 1-dad unit. We had our routines. We had our inside jokes. We were whole. I was at Mason's parent-teacher conference. His teacher, Ms. Peterson, was telling me he was a natural leader. I was beaming. As I walked out, I bumped into another parent. "Sorry," I mumbled. "No, my fault," she said, smiling. She had a kind face and tired eyes I recognized, the eyes of a single parent. "You're Mason's dad, right? Dominic?" "Yeah. And you're?" "Livia Ashton. My daughter Juliet is in Mason's class. She talks about him all the time. He's the fastest runner." We stood in the hallway and talked. It was easy. She was a registered nurse at the local hospital. She was divorced. Her ex had been unfaithful, a story I knew all too well. The thing about betrayal, she told me over coffee a week later, is it teaches you what's real and what's not. She understood. She got the exhaustion. She got the endless, crushing weight of being everything for your kids. Our relationship was slow, careful. The kids were my priority, and I wouldn't let anyone into their lives who wasn't 100% right. Livia never tried to be their mom. She just was. She showed up. She came to Mason's baseball games and cheered louder than I did. She saw Sienna's drawings and didn't just say, "That's nice." She sat down with her, showed her how to mix colors, and bought her a real set of watercolor paints. "You've got the eye, Sienna," she'd said. She read bedtime stories to Alara, doing all the different voices until my stoic little girl was giggling uncontrollably. She never tried to replace Adriana. She just carved out her own space, and the kids rushed in to fill it. After a year and a half of dating, of blending our weekends, it just made sense. We were tired of saying goodbye. Livia and Juliet had become part in our lives. We found a larger 4-bedroom rental in the Ashford Place neighborhood. The schools were better, and there was a backyard. The night we moved in, we ordered pizza and sat on cardboard boxes in the living room. All 5 kids, Mason, Sienna, Alara, and Juliet, were laughing, fighting over the last slice. Livia caught my eye and smiled. It wasn't my old life. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It was better. I proposed to Livia on Alara's 7th birthday. It was a small party in our new backyard. I hadn't planned it, but as I watched Livia light the candles on the cake, it just hit me. This was it. This was real. I got down on one knee. The kids all screamed. Livia cried. After she said yes, and after the ring was on her finger, Alara, my serious, practical 7-year-old, walked up to Livia. "Does this mean you're going to be our real mommy now?" she asked. Livia's eyes welled up again. She knelt to Alara's level. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, pulling her into a hug. "I've been your real mommy for a long time. Now it's just official." We got married at my mother's church in Hanahan. It was small, maybe 40 people. Our family and closest friends. Mason, now 11, stood beside me as my groomsman. He wore a clip-on tie and took his job so seriously he looked like a tiny Secret Service agent. Sienna, 9, was a bridesmaid, and Alara, 7, and Juliet, 8, were the flower girls. When Livia walked down the aisle, I didn't see a replacement. I saw my partner, my equal, the woman who had seen the broken pieces of my family and helped me build something stronger. This wedding wasn't about youthful fantasy. It was about adult choice. It was about commitment. It was genuine. In 2015, 8 years after she'd vanished, I received a certified letter. It was from a lawyer in Oregon. Adriana wanted to make our divorce official. The papers stated she intended to marry Connor Harding. The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. After 8 years of total, complete silence, no birthday cards, no Christmas calls, not $1 of child support, she now needed my signature to move on with the life she had chosen. I signed the papers, had them notarized at my bank, and mailed them back the same day. It was the cleanest, easiest breakup in history. A year later, Livia and I sat down with the kids. Mason was 14, Sienna 12, and Alara 9. "Mom," Mason said to Livia. He'd been calling her that for years. "I was looking something up for school. Legally, you're our stepmom, right?" "That's right, honey," Livia said carefully. "I don't like it," Sienna announced, crossing her arms. "It sounds fake. You're not our stepmom. You're our mom." "We want to change our names," Mason said, all business. "We want to be Daltons, but we want you to be our legal mom too. We want to be adopted." The legal fees were staggering. It cost us almost $11,000, money we had to pull from our savings. But it was worth every cent. We all stood before a judge. He asked each child, individually, if this was what they wanted. Ilara, my articulate, confident 12-year-old, looked the judge right in the eye. "Yes, Your Honor. It means Livia is going to be our mom forever. Like officially forever, and nobody can take that away from us." I looked at Livia, who was openly weeping. My silent revenge was complete. Adriana hadn't just lost a family. She had been erased, replaced, by a woman who had earned the title. The doorbell rang on a Saturday morning in April, 18 years, an entire childhood. I was in the kitchen flipping pancakes. Livia was at the table reading the news on her tablet. It was our weekend ritual. The kids were grown, out of the house, building their own lives, but they still came by constantly. The bell rang again, sharper this time. We weren't expecting anyone. Livia looked at me with that silent, married for a decade look. Who could that be? I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door. I opened it, and I barely recognized the woman standing on my porch. It was Adriana, but it was a version of her worn down by time and bad choices. She was 47, but she looked 60. Her hair was thin and gray. Her face was a road map of stress lines. She was wearing a Workmart cashier's vest, the cheap blue polyester stained and crumpled. In the driveway, I saw her car, a dented 20-year-old Nova sedan with a failing muffler. Years ago, out of a dark curiosity, I'd done an internet search. Connor Harding had left her in 2017 for a younger woman. Adriana was alone. "Hello, Dominic," she said. Her voice was thin, reedy. I didn't smile. I didn't invite her in. I blocked the doorway with my body. Adriana, what do you want? She flinched at my coldness, but she held her ground. She'd clearly rehearsed this. I know it's been a long time. I've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I'm here now. What do you want? I want to see my children, she said, the words hanging in the air. Behind me in the hallway, I heard Livia's footsteps stop. She was there, an anchor, ready to back me up, but letting me handle it. Your children? I kept my voice perfectly level. Which children would those be? Her composure cracked. Dominic, don't. Miles, Sienna, and Alara. I know they're adults, but they're still my kids. I gave birth to them. I have rights. I almost laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. Rights? You have no rights here. I was young, she cried, her voice rising. I was confused. Connor promised me a different life. You forfeited your rights when you chose him over them, I said, my voice like steel. You forfeited them when you left Alara at daycare. You forfeited them every birthday and Christmas you missed for 18 years. You can't keep them from me. I don't have to, I said. Livia adopted them in 2016. They are her children, legally, morally, in every way that matters. You are nothing to them. You are a biological stranger. No, we really don't. The voice came from behind me. Strong, deep, and calm. I turned. Mason was standing in the hallway dressed in his weekend clothes. He was 23 now, a mechanical engineer for Bravo Aerospace. Successful, confident. He was visiting to help me fix a leaky faucet. He stepped past me standing on the porch, a foot taller than the woman who'd abandoned him. Mason, Adriana breathed, reaching out a trembling hand. Oh, Mason, look at you. You look. Save it, Mason said, his voice flat. He looked her up and down, taking in the work-mart vest, the defeated posture. You don't get to do this, he said. You don't get to walk out, disappear for our entire lives, and then show up on a Saturday morning because your life turned out to be a dumpster fire. I'm your mother, she pleaded. This is my mother, Mason said, gesturing back at Livia, who was now standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. She was the one at my games. She was the one who taught me to drive. She was the one who was there. You were a ghost, and now you're not even that. You're just a woman on our porch. Wow, he's right. You really did it. Sienna. She'd heard the commotion from the driveway, where she was unloading canvases from her car. At 21, she was a professional artist, preparing for her 4th gallery show. She walked up and stood next to Mason, her artist's eye missing nothing. The cheap shoes, the desperate eyes, the resignation. Let me guess, Sienna said, her voice dripping with scorn. Life in Oregon or wherever you crawled off to didn't work out. Connor left you. Yeah, we know. And now you want to play mom to the successful, well-adjusted adults you had zero part in raising. It's pathetic. Sienna, please. Adriana wept, the tears finally coming. I never stopped thinking about you. I had to find myself. Find yourself? Sienna shot back, her voice rising. We were 5, 3, and 18 months old. We needed a mother, not someone on a selfish journey of self-discovery. You didn't find yourself. You lost us. You look disappointed. Ilara, my youngest, now 20 years old, home from the University of South Carolina for the weekend. She walked up and stood with her siblings, a united front. She looked at Adriana not with anger, but with a cold, terrifying analysis. "Were you expecting a tearful reunion?" Ilara asked, her voice quiet and sharp. "Did you hope we'd be broken? That we'd grown up damaged and needy, desperate for the love you never gave us? Sorry to disappoint you. We're fine. I'm your mother," Adriana whispered, her last, desperate defense. "I carried you. I gave birth to you." "Livia Ashton is our mother," Ilara said, her words landing like a judge's gavel. "She earned that title by being there every single day for 18 years. She earned it at graduations and dance recitals, and when we were sick at 3 a.m. You were just the woman who gave birth to us. That's a biological fact, not an emotional one." Adriana stared at the three incredible, strong, successful adults standing in front of her, the children she had thrown away. She looked at me. She looked at Livia. And she broke. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, holding onto the porch railing. "I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. I'm so alone." Ilara, my future prosecutor, took one step forward. Her voice was still quiet, but it cut through the morning air. "Are you sorry you left?" she asked. "Or are you just sorry it didn't work out with Connor?" Adriana couldn't answer. She just stared, her mouth open, the truth of the question hanging in the air. She had no reply, because we all knew the answer. She wasn't sorry for the choice. She was just sorry for the consequence. Defeated, she turned. She wiped her face on her sleeve, a small, pathetic gesture. She walked down the path, got into her dented, dying car, and drove away. We watched until the taillights disappeared. I stood there, flanked by my children. Livia stepped out onto the porch and wrapped her arms around my waist from behind, resting her head on my back. Mason put his arm around Sienna. Ilara leaned against my side. We stood there for a long time, a solid, unbroken wall. A family. Livia squeezed me. "Are you okay, Dom?" I nodded, turning to wrap her in my arms. "I'm better than okay." We all came together in a group hug, not for show, not for her, but for us. It was the hug we'd perfected, the one built on choice, on commitment, and on showing up. That afternoon, Livia and I were sitting on the back deck. The kids had gone out, but they'd be back for dinner. They always came back. "Do you feel vindicated?" Livia asked, taking my hand. "After all this time, seeing her like that?" I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said honestly. "I don't feel vindicated. I feel grateful." She looked at me, confused. "Grateful?" "Yeah, grateful she left when she did. If she hadn't, I might never have learned how to fight for them. I might never have known how strong I was." "And," I said, turning to her and lifting her hand to my lips, "I would never have met you. They would never have had you as their mother." My revenge wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was this. It was sitting on a deck I owned, next to a woman I loved, waiting for my 3 successful, happy children to come over for dinner. Adriana's selfish choice hadn't been our tragedy. It had been our beginning. She could go back to her empty apartment, to her cashier's vest, to the life she'd chosen. She was irrelevant. Some doors, once you close them, you can never open again. She learned that 18 years too late, and that was the most perfect justice I could have ever asked for. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.